Dennis Sanders.
And Sheryl Sanders.
I was in school. I enrolled in 1976, and I graduated in 1981. And my programs were basically Bible, theology, and pastoral.
And I went in 1977, and I was done in 1979. And I went for Bible programs and just to learn more about the scripture more in depth, and then for secretarial.
Well, I grew up in the West out here, and my first thought was Denver Baptist Bible College. My dad was at Omaha Baptist Bible College, and we decided that we would go to Ankeny and went out to youth days and visited the campus, and then decided this would be a good spot.
Because I heard about faith at my church, and we went to youth days too as a youth group, and decided that would be the best direction for me. Plus my church encouraged me to go, and they helped a little bit with the finances. Pastor and wife even took me shopping for clothes so I could have the dresses.
When I was a junior in high school, I made a decision to give God my life, to dedicate my life, and I felt at that time I was called to ministry some way. I did not know where at that time. So entering faith, I was looking at maybe a missionary, but stronger in the area of maybe pastoral ministry if God wanted that, and has confirmed his call throughout all of our years, even coming out here 10 years ago to Colorado. At that time it was like, I'm not really sure if God is done with us, that age, and he made a very strong call for us, and we felt very strong about coming out here.
God makes himself very clear in which direction he wants you to go. When I was in high school, because of the home situation and things that I was growing up with, I always thought, it would be cool to be a pastor's wife, because I admired at the time my pastor and wife, and tried to be involved in our church as much as I could. But I didn't know if that's the direction that the Lord would have for me, but I was really interested in that. And then when I went to Faith and met him, we were really good friends at first. And in one of the prayer groups, how you have prayer day and you split up, so all of us were sitting there, and he had a prayer request. He said, pray for me for a wife. And we're all like, oh, okay. And he said, well, I know I'm going into ministry, and I think it would be important to have a wife. And we're like, okay, we'll pray for you for a wife.
Yep. I trapped her into that prayer request, didn't I?
So, and then sure enough, we began dating and knew right away that that we were to be together. And
I always talk about how excellent my professors were. They were very good at what they did, obviously, but very practical learning experience as well. And so, you go back and look over some of the notes that you took back in class when I could read them, and you get some of that help. It was a very solid instruction, though.
It was a big eye-opening experience for me, because I didn't grow up in a Christian home all my life, and I wasn't saved till later, and so I thought going into the ministry, this is going to be so great, because it's going to be normal compared to the abnormal childhood. And I can't say that Faith really prepared me for what I was going to face, but what I did learn from Faith were people skills. Some of the people skills, learning how to get along with your roommates, learning how to adjust, the flexibility part, and then just being out there in the world as opposed to, staying home in your local town.
Well, we got married in 1979, and I graduated in 81. And then shortly after graduation, we were living in Des Moines, but I was doing pulpit supply, just kind of
for about a year,
traveling around the state. It was kind of fun, getting to meet different places. And then in 1982, I went to Murray Baptist Church, became the pastor there. And then, we've been in 3 other churches, one in Shell Rock, one in Dyke, and then here in Aurora. And I've just served as pastor in all of those areas. So
the first church was quite a training ground, and it was really nice in southern Iowa, and they were so sweet and so encouraging. They looked at the pastors that they brought in. They knew they couldn't support you full time. They were so patient and offered so much grace. So we learned a lot. We still are friends with some of those in Murray, Iowa. They're sweet people.
I think that most of the challenges that we have faced early on was bivocational. I was working in Des Moines still, and we had moved to our first ministry, and it was an hour drive. So, and I worked a 10-hour days. And so then coming home at night and trying to, wrap your brain around studies, and, at that time you're in charge of everything. So you were planning and trying to keep yourself organized enough to do that. And I think that was a big challenge, and it wears you out quickly, And then the other challenge was where it deals with people. The joke is the ministry would be great if it wasn't for the people, but I think that's not true so much, because there are some lovely people, some great people that God, puts us in. It's the few that taint it for a lot, right?
As a pastor's wife, there are expectations of you that are not scriptural. And like I said earlier, people put you in a box and expect you to look a certain way, sound a certain way, do certain things. And learning to be okay with what God has gifted me with and where my strengths and weaknesses are, and that my identity isn't in piano or in pastor's wife. It's in my relationship with the Lord, and He's the one who gives me the strength to do what I'm supposed to do. And I'm not here to meet other people's expectations, but just God's. But that took a long time for me to learn. The other challenge is being away from family.
Right.
That's hard. But I'm so thankful for technology and FaceTime. So I'm thankful that God didn't put us farther away from them, because it's hard. We have 5 little grandchildren, and we don't get to see them much.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest challenge in ministry for me.
Yeah. It is huge. We're just having a really fun time ministering here. We've got men's and ladies Bible studies that we're involved in. There's, a couple of people that are currently attending that we're, using the John study to help them understand salvation, and hopefully they'll come to Christ eventually soon. And then the other challenges that we're doing right now is just staying focused, hopefully, on ministry here. I know
you're getting mentoring a young man that is trying to determine if the Lord's actually calling him into the ministry.
Right.
So he's been meeting with him every Friday, and that young man gets to preach the end of this month. So that's exciting. Yeah. He's working on a sermon with him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So those are the joys that you're always doing. We're getting older, and we're looking forward to that day where maybe we can just go, and like Sheryl was saying, our family is back in Iowa. We'd love to be able to just, maybe go there and enjoy a little bit of twilight life with our grandkids and our kids. But, that's up to the Lord, however He decides to use us. If we've got some more, we feel we've got enough in the tank to go a little bit longer, but,
Well, in the meantime, we're praying that the Lord will give us the energy and the good health to last for however He wants to use us, because it is, the older you get, the harder it is. It's, you really, it is hard. And, that our people here are great. They are very supportive and loving, and they're hungry for the Word, which is good. Yeah. We've seen a lot of spiritual growth, and so we're sad that so many people come and go. We live in an area where we just have a lot of people coming in and leaving. We have probably a new visitor every Sunday, but it's hard to minister in a community that is so large. What is Aurora up to? About 400,000 now. That's a challenge, but at the same time, it's neat to see how our people are inviting, and also people see our sign. They just come in, they see the sign, they find us online. This is the most loving church we've ever walked into, and you can't fake that. Like, it's genuine. Yeah. They make sure they greet people, and they make sure they get to know people. They might not remember names, but if you return, they're like, "Oh, we're glad to see you. We're glad you're back." And they care about each other. They check on each other. They text. They call. So they take care of each other. It's really a unique situation.
Right.
We've been in the ministry 40-some years, and we can really sincerely say this is a very loving place to be.
So that is what drew us here, the love that they had for the Lord and for us too, which was really helpful.